Me and Sam are people. Like, if you are close to us, you are gonna know a lot about us. I did a ton of life changes before we were planning on having kids. Keeping calm and seeking to understand each other. Like, I don't have a specific moment I can cling to that, oh, that was my moment. In your savings account, like, you wanna be saving every month, maybe set a goal. I want to, in the small things, acknowledge God, praise Him, and grow in gratefulness for Him. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a Q&A, and I have questions all across the board from marriage, faith, pregnancy, and just life advice that I thought would be fun to answer. So it's gonna be a whole mix. Obviously, there were a lot of pregnancy questions, but I tried to only choose a few because later on in pregnancy, I will do another Q&A. Per usual, I asked you guys over on my Instagram, so if you wanna follow me over there, feel free to go ahead. That is where I post about my daily life and kind of more like quick snippets of things, so to say. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. Okay, we're starting off strong. This was one of the first questions, and I thought this was really good to answer. It says, have you ever had a faith crisis? And I would say the answer is yes. I, especially in college, had a period in my life where I was just really questioning everything. I think I've talked about this before, but I grew up going to church, right? I grew up being the good girl or whatever. I generally didn't branch out, and like, I wasn't really rebellious. I just don't really have a rebellious spirit. And so whenever I got to college, I had this moment of like, wait a second, do I believe in God and everything I say I do because that's what I was told was right, and like I was obviously praised for it whenever I would act a certain way or do the right thing or whatever. And so I started questioning, like, do I believe this because I believe this, or do I believe this because everybody in my life believes this and this is what I've grown up around? So whenever I got to college, that was kind of the crisis I was dealing with, and it didn't take too long for me to overcome because my freshman year I really learned, oh no, like I really do believe this, and I do love the Lord, and I know His ways are good. And then my second crisis was a couple years later, still in college, and I had just constantly felt anxious about like, has the Lord truly forgiven me? I was believing all these lies of like, oh, but you know, since I was a Christian from such a young age, I should have known better with things that I was, you know, mistakes I made, or whenever I deliberately chose to do wrong, as we sometimes do. I just sometimes wondered like, well, I knew better, because I'd hear people in my life who had these amazing before and after testimonies. Like, I don't have a specific moment I can cling to that, oh, that was my moment. I was feeling anxious about like, well, I should have known better, and maybe I don't actually believe in God, or maybe He hasn't actually forgiven me. I was clearly believing the lie of like, I earn my salvation, which is so not true, and the Bible is very clear about that. Like, eternal life is a gift, and I read this morning and it was so needed. Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors, and the Pharisees came up, which I feel like I could be a Pharisee, which were the nobles of the church, the people that were super righteous, did everything right, and they were like, why are you eating with tax collectors and sinners? And Jesus said, this is Matthew 2 verse 17. And when Jesus heard that, He said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but the sinners. And it reminded me that God has always known my whole life. He has known every transgression, every sin, every wrong that I've ever done, and yet He still chose to die on the cross for me. And knowing that truth, and like, just, I was believing a slight lie of like, well, I should have known better, right? I should have done better. I should have been better. And that's not what the gospel is. I think it's normal to have moments of like, wait a second, I'm confused, or is this what I truly believe? And God cares about those questions. And I'm so glad I walked through those because my faith is so much stronger for it. What are your and Sam's conflict styles? How have you grown in resolving conflict? So yeah, so the 4 conflict styles are withdrawal, escalation, negative interpretation, and invalidation. I withdraw and then I invalidate. Those are like my 2 things. And I would say Sam escalates. He doesn't ever really withdraw, but he's like, I want to figure this out. I want to get this done. Like, let's hash this right now. And I'm kind of like, I'm interpreting everything you're saying is just an attack against me, so I'm gonna leave. And we have learned how to better handle those. That was definitely like more the beginning of our relationship. And now I think we both have learned to like, 1, take a pause when we need to pause, to get both of our heads in the right space. And so it's like, how can we best resolve this calmly. Like keeping calm and seeking to understand each other is the key. Like we're not here to win an argument. We are here to resolve an argument and to make sure that you're heard, I'm heard. Also, one of my biggest tips, okay, and I really try my best to do this, it's very hard, but if Sam is the first one to bring something to me, if he says, hey, when you did this, this really bothered me, and I oftentimes have something that he did that really bothered me that maybe provoked me to do it or whatever it is, or I feel like it's a bigger issue, I would then bring that up, and what that would do is completely trump anything he's talking about and make him feel invalidated. So I've learned, like, whoever is the first one to speak up and say, this is really bothering me, or the first one to say, I am the offended and you are the offender. As the offender, do not bring up how you are also offended. You can bring that up another time, but it will be completely invalidating. So that is something I really try to do, to put myself aside and my feelings aside and to show him, like, okay, what you're telling me, I don't want to be that way. I am sorry that that hurt you. How can I be better moving forward? Or talking about, okay, I see how I can do XYZ to prevent doing that. And if I do it again in the future, will you please bring it up to me? Like being a very safe place for him to come and bring any concerns that he has is kind of what we try to do for each other. This one says, is intimacy different since being pregnant? And I had always wondered about this, like, how does that work? And yes, it is, in two ways, probably, I'd say. Obviously, there's the physical side of, like, I've got a belly, like, it's a little uncomfy. But then the second thing is also just, like, emotionally, like, and physically, I am just so tired. So there's that side of things. So I have had to, one, give myself grace of, like, okay, I'm in a new season, and it was really hard because I was so sick. I mean, I'm still so sick. I'm 22 weeks pregnant. I've still been vomiting. I've still had really bad nausea. Giving myself grace and us having constant conversations, I think, is important. Like me checking in and saying, hey, like, how are you feeling? Because I want to know that my husband is satisfied, you know, and I'm the only one that can satisfy him. So I would love to be able to do that, like, out of my loving care for him. And at the same time, it's hard because sometimes I'm just, like, not in the mood. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm nauseous, whatever it is. I think we've both just had, like, clear communication and also understanding of, like, this is just a different time. Like, he's so understanding of, like, this is, like, a rough time. He doesn't expect this to be the height of our sex life, you know? And then the physical thing, like, you just figure out what works and what doesn't work, and, like, literally it changes week to week. That's kind of my answer to that. So somebody asked, will me and Sam both be staying home with the baby? Will just one of us be staying home, or will we do, like, daycare and a nanny situation? Sam works full-time from home, which is super convenient. We both work full-time from home. Our plan is that I will be, like, full-time mom, so to say. Like, I kind of gotta be. When you're breastfeeding, all the things, like, you are the source of life here for this child. And Sam's job is very demanding, so it's not like he has, like, hours in the day that he could just come down and help me with the baby. But at the same time, it is super helpful that I am sure in a moment, if I absolutely needed his help, he could help me if he didn't have a meeting or something. I am definitely looking at this like that is my number one job. And then with work and stuff, I will probably ask my mom to watch our baby once a week or something so that I can either get work done or whatever. I haven't really quite planned that out. And the reason I haven't is because I just don't know what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna give myself time to, like, get into a groove and see what I even expect with a baby and all of that for work. So that's the plan right now. So essentially I will be a stay-at-home mom with this virtual job. I actually surprisingly got a lot of questions about natural cycles. Someone said, I want to go to natural cycles instead of the pill, but I am so afraid. Help. If you don't know what natural cycles is, it is essentially a birth control app, and how it works is that you track your temperature every single morning and then you plug it in, and then based off of their algorithm of knowing your body and your body's temperature, it can tell when you're ovulating. So then it will give you red days during your ovulation to know, like, use protection or abstain, whatever it is. And then you've got your green days, which means you're good to go, you won't get pregnant. My story is that I was on the pill for a year, got off the pill, and then got on natural cycles. I love natural cycles, and so I used that for about 2 years maybe. And then the first month that I literally changed it from preventing pregnancy to getting pregnant, we got pregnant. So I would say it works very, very well. And I loved that my body was on its own rhythm, and I felt very, like, empowered knowing where I was in my cycle, and it was just great. It was a great experience. And once I have the baby and I get my period back, we will be using it again. But speaking to your fear, I don't know if you're a Christian or not. I don't anticipate that every single person that watches my videos is a Christian like me. As a Christian, God creates life with intention. And that's where I found peace of like, because whenever I started using it, me and Sam were not ready to have kids. But I knew if we got pregnant, like God so clearly will have a purpose for that life. That was a really important mindset for me to have. If that means that you get pregnant unexpectedly, then that is going to be beautiful. And in 10 years, you're going to look back and say, I wouldn't change a thing. So just remembering that. Best tips for saving money to buy a house. I am no financial advisor. Like obviously you should be saving money, right? You should be making small decisions that make bigger impacts in your savings account. Like you want to be saving every month, maybe set a goal like 20% or 10% or whatever. But I would also say it is easier to make more money than it is to try and save the money that you're making, especially in this economy, okay? So what I mean by that is do a side hustle, do something on the side, like go to thrift stores, find great clothes and upsell them, or flip furniture, or there are so many amazing things that you can do. And it doesn't even have to be a second job. Like you can do things that are on your own time. And I think that will make the biggest change in your savings account. Like, yes, you can just pinch pennies and save, and that is a great way to do it. But I think you'll actually get further faster by trying to make more money. This question is, I want to get pregnant. Do you have any advice? I'm going to put the biggest disclaimer right here. I did a ton of life changes before we were planning on having kids for about a year and a half, with the mindset of helping my fertility, my body, all the things. And then we got pregnant the very first try. I am not saying 100% that all of those things I did are the reason that we were able to get pregnant, but I'm also not saying that those things did not help. Like ultimately, I know that God gave this baby life, but at the same time, I had a lot of odds stacked against me, and even my doctors were very doubtful that I would get pregnant easily. I did a lot of things. And so I'll kind of explain some main things that I did. First things first, I really started eating like all organic, cleaner foods. And again, I did a very balanced lifestyle, I would say. So if we went out to eat, I just ate whatever. But when I was cooking at home, I was very mindful about what I put in my food. And like, obviously if there's better choices available while we were out to eat, I would do the better choices. So organic, no seed oils. And then I also really started looking into what best fuels women hormones. So lots of full fat things. Don't get the 0% fat stuff. Like your body does so well, especially women, with those things. I don't think I have any major dairy or gluten intolerances, but I really focused on doing a low inflammatory diet. I didn't go full force on it, but I would just look into like anti-inflammatory diets. That's huge for women's hormones. And then the last thing I'll suggest, and I think all women should be doing this, whether you know you have this or not, I have a gene mutation called MTHFR that is linked with infertility in women. And a lot of women have that and they have no idea. And so how you fix, it's a very simple fix, very simple, depending on which one you have. But you start by taking methylated folate. So in your vitamins, you have regular folate, which is like man-made process. Then you have methylated folate, which is the kind that if you have that gene mutation, your body can actually process. Folate is the most important thing for pregnancy, or one of the most important things. So you should be taking any methylated vitamin that you can. Brands like Ritual, Parallel Vitamins, and Smarty Pants, I know are 3 that I've taken that work great. So I did either a prenatal vitamin or a preconception vitamin prior to getting pregnant. Like I was prepping my body for that. And then the last thing I did was that I really began working out again. That was something that I knew was so good for my body, my mental health, my body as a whole. And I started doing that about a year before we started trying, and I really was in a good place mentally, physically. It just helped so much. Do you have advice for how to be in prayer and abide all day long? This is something that I really struggle with, and I think that that's the human side of us. That's our flesh. That's normal, but I don't want that to be my normal, right? Like I want to, in the small things, acknowledge God, praise Him, and grow in gratefulness for Him, and really think about how can I better glorify You, every minute, every hour, all those things. I think it starts with gratitude with the Lord. Like in the small things, just thanking God for what he's done. If it's as simple as having food in front of you and being so grateful, or if you're just like browsing around Target, just being like, Lord, thank you that I have the time to do this. Little things like that, like really changing your mindset and praising the Lord, I think that truly will kickstart so much else. And then also being aware of like, if you're in a relationship or you've got friends, like how can I lay my life down in this moment to help you or to be a better friend for you or a better spouse for you, I think is super helpful. Okay, somebody asked baby boundaries with friends and family. So I've kind of been thinking about this. Now, nothing wrong with, I am all for like what you say as the mom goes, right? I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to give you a hard time. So something like I know for sure we won't allow is like in the first 3 months, like no one can kiss the baby or kiss their hands, kiss their face. Like that's unnecessary. It spreads sickness and they can't really handle that yet. So that's like a firm boundary that me and Sam will absolutely put in place. But at the same time, I want to be flexible so that when we do put a boundary in place, people go, oh, okay, like you rarely have harsh things to say and this is what you're saying. Now, obviously you're the parent, so everything is up to you. And no matter what, I think people should respect what you say, but I want to do my best to make things easier for everybody else to where I also feel comfortable. I'm not concerned about that with our families or anything, but that's just how I think or try to think about things. Okay, somebody asked if we had found a small group yet, and we actually just got involved, or I shouldn't say involved. We got an email saying like, hey, this small group opened, we're so excited, and then we've like gotten the emails and we're with other couples. We just haven't met yet. So if you guys could be praying for that, that would be so amazing. We have been so expectant to get involved in community, and it feels like this is a weird time because by the time the small group will launch, our baby will almost be here. So I'm like, that's gonna be a challenge, but at the same time, I'm not gonna let that stop us. Community is so vital for believers. And not only that, like not just in Christianity, like me and Sam are people. Like if you are close to us, you are gonna know a lot about us. We are open about our marriage. We are open about our struggles, so many things, because we think it's so important to walk through that with trusted people and to truly, I know this is like such a coined phrase for the church, but like do life together. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, the next question is, how many kids do you and Sam want? I would say we want a lot of kids, probably around 4, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I don't say that with certainty because, you know, you never know. Everything is what God would provide for us and allow. And honestly, I did not anticipate pregnancy being so rough for me. But at the same time, my next one could be better. Who knows? I grew up with a 4-children household and I loved it. I loved the busyness and I love how full my parents' table is now. And I know I would love that once I get older. This question says, I'm recently married. How do I not feel insecure about my body during intimacy? I think that's normal. I would say I just felt more like insecure about the fact of like, wow, you're really seeing my whole body. But really as time went on, like I just got more and more comfortable. But I would say that wasn't like a deep-rooted issue for me. So maybe that's why. And I also think Sam has done just such a good job of like constantly affirming me. But I think something that is really helpful is I feel like we, especially as women, like, or really as human beings, when we have a problem, when we focus on it so much, it just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. So if you are being intimate with your husband and you're constantly thinking about how you look, then you're just your brain's just gonna get in the habit of like, oh, we're being intimate, okay, think about my body and how I feel, and then it's gonna shut down all the things that, you know, should be happening during intimacy that you're not even thinking about yourself, you're just enjoying yourself. I know that it's really challenging, but I would try your best to like not think about those things. And there are certain things that you can do to actually physically help, like maybe you don't have the lights on. And I also think speaking to your spouse about how you're feeling so that they can best help you through that is so important. This is a great question. It says, how to stay patient in the waiting period, really struggling. So I myself, I feel like I'm in a waiting period, especially during the first trimester and into my second trimester of this pregnancy. I was so physically sick. Emotionally, it was a lot. Mentally, it was a lot. And I felt like I was just waiting for it to pass. It was like I was waiting for this finish line, and I kept seeing 12 weeks as the finish line. If I just make it there, I'll survive. survive. Well, I made it there and I was like, uh-oh, I'm not gonna survive, right? Like my panic set in and I had to, one, adjust my expectations to, okay, first of all, that was not promised. Why did I cling to that? Second of all, this realistically could be my whole pregnancy. So whatever you're walking through, whether it's singleness or whatever, I think it's very important to not cling to a false hope, but instead cling to a true hope. So my false hope was, okay, once I get here, I'll feel better. So if you're single, your false hope could be, well, once I find a guy to date, then I'll feel better. And he could not be the one that you need to marry, you know? And so the true hope for me is learning to have gratitude in literally the worst, darkest time of my life and being grateful that the Lord has blessed me with a baby that, as far as we know, is healthy, turning all my negative thoughts into gratitude to the Lord. And like, we can cast our cares on him, but I'm saying that in the sense of like, he has entrusted me with this deep, terrible pain, nausea, and I know that he will not give me more than I can handle. And I know that he will help me through it, right? He wouldn't abandon me in these moments. And so really understanding that really helped me and has still helped me. So I say all of my pregnancy things, and hopefully you can relate that to whatever stage of life you're in. We're always gonna have waiting periods, but it's how we walk through them. And I think the most important thing is that no matter what, being grateful for the cross and that Christ died for us, even whenever we were dead in our sin, did nothing, and he still loved us. Like, with that at the forefront of your mind, nothing compares. Does that make sense? So I hope that's helpful. Do you have a name for the baby? Oh my gosh, this has been the hardest thing. So we announced the gender last week. So we are having a baby girl. And when we first found that out, I was like, okay, yay, naming will be easy, because we both had a million girl names that we loved. Now being pregnant, I'm like, that's not her name, that's not her name, that's not her name. Like, there is one name that we've been calling her, and I think we'll name her that, but like, I'm not sure. Sam's like, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how you know. So as of right now, we are still unsure about the name. It's much harder than I anticipated. So leave your baby girl name recommendations down below. I'll tell you guys the vibe that we kind of like. Nothing too crazy unique, but also not like the most popular name ever. Unfortunately, I love so many popular names, and I'm trying to decide between like, does that matter or not? The kind of vibes that I love a good classic name, a little whimsical, very feminine, but then I also like boy names for girls, so that one's just randomly thrown in there. I personally love a good vintage name. Sam is not on the train of like vintage, so let me know your baby girl name recommendations down below. I would love that. Those are all the questions for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too much pregnancy, but just enough. I hope it was encouraging and a light to you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.